and there's a very basic rule. When something is in the upper part, it means it's more in the distance. And when it's down at the bottom, it means it's closer to you. So nothing blocks each other, so there is no... it's possible to see every building, but in Western perspective, usually the stuff in the front somehow hides what's in the back. So this is not the case here. I love these drawings. These are photos that I made, which sort of look like the Ottoman miniatures that I just showed, because they lack perspective. And the reason they lack perspective is, in order to be able to make these images, I start with very thin and long hyperpanoramas, we call them. Then I scale them to normal ratios, using an algorithm called content-aware scaling, actually available in Photoshop. So you can also try. Some more of that. I call this series Mutamorphosis, which is the combined word of mutation and metamorphosis. This is Istanbul. Istanbul once again. So imagine these as very, very long panoramas. Then they are scaled into this. Istanbul once again. Yeah, this is also Istanbul. What this algorithm does, funnily, whenever it finds a body of shape within a homogeneous color zone, it keeps the shape intact. But whenever it finds the same shape in a heterogeneous environment where you have a lot of texture, then it tends to thin or either make it disappear. So I don't feel very close to a skyscraper as a form of architecture. Here, the links to the ground, the links of the skyscrapers to the ground weakened a lot, so I really like this case. They look as if they're going to break and disappear soon, hopefully. This is my favorite public show so far, including very small and bigger exhibitions, group exhibitions and solo exhibitions and everything. I participated to maybe close to 100 exhibitions so far, and only 2 of them were in the public space. When you go to galleries, it's usually a few people, except the openings, obviously. I mean, if you have 5 or 10 people visiting your exhibit in a gallery every day, you're lucky. When you go to museums, it's usually hundreds or thousands of people a day, depending on the exhibition and depending on the free day for the entrance. And here you are in the middle of the city, and this is actually one of the really densest, most crowded squares in Istanbul, which is called Beşiktaş Square, and it's one of the transportation hubs in Istanbul. So 10,000s of people happen to see it every single day, so it's addressing many more people in this particular case. I always love to exhibit in the public space, but unfortunately, public space exhibition in Turkey is not very widespread. I also try things with mobile phones, obviously. So this is actually my mobile phone and an app called SplitScan. This is what you could. I mean, it's it's fun. You should try it, it has. There are SplitScan apps both for the Android and iOS operating systems. and just get the app and experiment with it. You can obtain some really cool results. In this particular case, I am stationary, and the scene in front of me flows, okay? But here I am mobile, and because I put the cell phone, the smartphone, against the window, and it was just following the scenes that we were going through. I was in the train, so I was in motion. But these are, the result is different in this particular case. So now, I've turned into a documentary photographer lately, because I don't know if you heard, but in 2013, we had this movement or protests, series of protests that we called Gezi resistance. It took place in the very central part of the town, Taksim Square in Istanbul. And it took like 2 weeks. We basically occupied the entire square. And since then, I started to be more and more active in documentary photography, because I wanted to document what was going on in our country, because there were special times. People were always on the streets, rallying, demonstrating, and looking for their rights. This is why I did not obviously stop fictional photography or manipulative or digital photography. I kept doing some fictional work, but I minimized them. I started to do more and more documentary work. And let's see some examples. And I'm also following what's happening to Istanbul, because there is a very rapid urbanization in Istanbul going on at this moment. Istanbul is historically a horizontally spread city, and Istanbul looks much better as a horizontal city, not as a vertical city. But unfortunately, following the global trends in the world, there is also a lot of high-rise construction in Istanbul, and Istanbul is changing very rapidly. So we're losing some of the historical and architectural heritage. So I want to nobody obviously commissioned me to do so. This is my own, own sense of responsibility. So I do this in my free time. I don't have much free time, but I'm trying to create as much as possible. So these are, this is, for instance, drone footage. I also use drones. This is what's happening to Istanbul very quickly. So you have to dig the ground in order to build all these skyscrapers, so that you have enough sand and gravel and cement to build all these monsters. So this is Asian side and European sides all collaged together. Now look at this. It looks like a wall, continuous wall, which obviously affects the local microclimate. This is a funny case. This you can find a lot of these in China, by the way. At first, being all these romantics, we thought the guy was resisting. So but it turned out he just wanted more money. That's all. So he was given the money, and then this was demolished in a week or so. This is the new airport. The construction of the new airport. It's built right now, and it's. Before the one in Beijing was constructed, it was known to be the largest airport in the world. Turkish Airlines is one of the very few global brands that Turkey could create. So I guess they were thinking of using this place as the hub to various places. Yeah, I ended up, as I write here, with a remarkable large collection of, or archive of documentary photographs. In contemporary art, it's obviously possible to share documentary photographs in order to explain your problem. But I wanted something beyond that. So I wanted to transcend the two-dimensional nature of photography. And I was trying to experiment on the possibilities of maybe 2.5 or 3 dimensional photography. How can I turn the two-dimensional surface of photography into a more dimensional surface? And would it make a difference if I did so? Then, yeah, this is my first experiment, by the way. So there's 6 lines here that go from the left to the right, and they all cover different topics in Istanbul. So this is like maybe the 25 or 30-year history in my own photography. So all the photos there are mine, but maybe some of them are from 25 or 30 years ago. And there are also, obviously, new photos. And the very last line is the line that matters most to me, because, you know, it all covers all the rallies and demonstrations we all made together with the citizens of Istanbul. There were many people sometimes. I mean, 10,000s of people attended these demonstrations. So in this case, so I started with analog, did a lot of experimentation in the digital environment, and now I'm going back to analog once again. Yes, some of the photos, not the previous ones, but some of the most of the late photos are digital, yes, but they are printed on boards, and then all this 3-dimensional moves that you see here. I made them all, so I went back to my analog days. Not working. Many different examples. As you see here, I'm trying to use different types of 3-dimensionalizations, and I will keep doing these, by the way. So I'm just maybe working on a catalog of how I can 3-dimensionalize photos. This is a piece, by the way, done with the leftovers. I was thinking of trashing them, but suddenly I realized maybe I could do something with this, and it's called a non-space because the photos describe nothing at all. So they formed a space, but it's non-space because they don't mean much. And it's in the collection of Istanbul Modern, one of the most known museums in Istanbul. Various ways of 3-dimensionalization. Oops, too fast. This time I was trying to the 3 dimensions with the mats. Actually, it's like I had like 9 consecutive mats, which look like stairs, and the photo inside is also stairs. So and in this particular case, obviously I didn't do the mats. So now the 3D construction belongs to the service person or the specialist at the framer. Oops, sorry. Goes too fast. So this is my late work. This work is actually it's being exhibited at this time until the 14th of December in Istanbul. So this is a bigger version of what I was trying to do in the work that I just showed to you, like how can I 3-dimensionalize photographs. So I was given this gallery space, which is basically a small room Then, I had this idea of, building a stairs inside the gallery space, and then wrap or map the photos that I took during the rallies and demonstrations onto the steps, so that we go to a particular, location, or we go to a particular aim, we go to a particular objective step by step, slowly, by demonstrating, by looking for our rights, So this is the model from various angles. So the gallery said, okay, yeah, let's do this. Then this is what happened. This is the real case. So the gallery room is on the left, obviously. And we were using plexi sheets with mirrored or mirror plexis, they call them, and the walls of the gallery were not very flat, so the plexi wobbled a little bit, so it gave all this deformation, which I loved because there were a lot of rumors about these demonstrations, who organized them and so there was a lot of disinformation or misinformation being spread. So this deformation on the mirrors, like the information is getting spread, but in a wrong way. So the information is deformed, and so I was very happy to have these deformations on the walls. The steps are like about 5 meters long, and obviously the regular step dimensions, like 20 centimeters high, 30 centimeters wide. This translates into "you will never walk alone." And yeah, this is a close photo showing how deformed it can get when you get close. And this is what I was aiming to have. Like, so this is a forum. This is like a forum place. Just go there, sit. If you're alone, you're alone. You think, I mean, did I contribute to all these, or where are we going? Where should we go and stuff? So just go there, meditate, think, maybe see some other people, look at yourself, look at your deformed shape of yourself. So I just wanted this to be a meditation room, actually. Actually, there is. I think I'm nearing my time somehow. Yeah, I have like 7 minutes to go. I would like to talk about the differences of analog and digital because observations and some possible distinctions in between analog and digital creation. Okay. Can I? Yeah. So analog modes of creation are more open to serendipity, as material failures are more susceptible to lead to surprising outcomes, as they have a larger palette of unexpected results, owing to the fact that processes are chemical, physical, biological, human, and not only software-based. I get less distracted when I work within an analog process as a result of the lack of multitasking processes I have to respond to, like emails, text messages, notifications of various software, when I'm sitting in front of a computer screen. And analog making paves the way to pure concentration, spiritual catharsis, meditation, in short, self-therapy. Under the right circumstances, your practice lets you forget troubles, desires, and dislikes, and lose your usual sense of time. time becomes that of the process, a more subtle focus takes over. And this is the way towards some truth about work or beauty. This is by Needleman, by the way. And McCullough says, Bernstein says, praxis is spirit in action. Great quote. Linearity can be more disrupted in physical crafting due to the fact that physically crafting an object may induce more fatigue or numbness in certain organs, and these may make the artist to start working on another part of the work. I think analog making processes could be considered more multi-temporal in this sense. Digitality brings with it a commitment to a binary logic, like true, false, 0, 1, white, black, with no gray or neutral zones in between. Analog physicality is not this polarized and offers transitional buffer zones, forming grounds for alternate outcomes to occur. In the digital realm, a copy is a totally identical recurrence. So all the copies are originals, actually. But in analog, a copy remains as a copy and can never replace the original. So all copy is a copy. These distinctive copies' interpretative capacities are therefore obviously different. Let's skip that. If we take a close look at the digital platform, it is possible to see that the tools and the environment at which you use the tools are all made internationally by internationally dominated software firms. This is very important, by the way. And your personal contribution is limited by the capacities of somebody else's software. In the analog realm, the tools are again made by the others, but yet the creator has more control over the environment and its conditions. So indoor, outdoor, cold, hot, soft, hard, day and night. And these may push the artist to expand his or her palette of solutions. So digital has its own signature, and sometimes you happen to use that signature. It's not your own signature, but in the analog realm, you can create your own signature by creating or by going through unexpected processes. I think the second page has a more. One must not forget. Conclusion. I'm finishing. One must not forget that there are pitfalls, as software used can sometimes leave foreseeable, recognizable traces in a designer or artist's production when effects and filters are overused. So you say, oh, it's photoshopped. So somebody did it, but you say it's done by Photoshop. I call this as the signature of the software, and this fact may fade, reduce uniqueness. This concern lately led me to experiment with mixing analog and digital creation processes to be able to see if physical collaging of digitally produced material will make a difference. As I started to sculpt the works materially, the above-mentioned predictability of digital fabrication processes turned into a rather more unanticipated and vague making mode. And most decisions were made in situ during the process, according to qualities of materials used. What I created enabled the human agency and minimized the non-human agency. The process could also be interpreted as deterritorialization and re-territorialization of photography. They're referring to the notions coined by Deleuze and Guattari. And the very last page, this is a very important quote, actually, by Cooney. In nowadays culture, we find manifold transfers and transformations from analog to digital and from digital to analog. And the objects resulting from these transfers and transformations are neither to be considered as pure digital or pure analog, but rather hybrids. And this is what I'm after. Hybrid is going to save the world. Thank you for your patience. Questions? Actually, I don't have anything to give you. Phil's was a great idea, actually. Yeah, if you have a question, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah.
Your interest in the work as an architect and a photographer
Thank you.
suggests me the possibilities in mapping projects. And my question is, have you ever worked in this kind of project? Or if not, do you think it should be interesting for you?
Can you repeat the question? How? Sorry.
Have you ever worked in a mapping project? Project
Mapping?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
you mean the very last, I mean, stairs or?
No, in big buildings or things like
I see what you mean. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Do you think it should be interesting, the kind of project for you?
It would be. Thank you. Great question. Sorry, I was late understanding. Yeah, it's a great idea. Definitely, I'd love to, but I think there is a special need. There is need for special equipment in order to be able to do that. I know some friends back in Turkey who are experiencing digital mapping onto buildings, and maybe I may talk to them in the future. But at this time, I am a little bit more interested in leaving maybe more permanent, how to say, traces in the city in larger dimensions. Because when you do projection, you have to wait for the nighttime because they look best during the nighttime, obviously. When the projector stops working, your work disappears. But when you work with prints, especially weather durable prints, your work is always there. So I think I prefer the print and also the possible fading through time. Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, I think there's one there.
Thank you. Does it feel different when you work on your more recent work, which is more about activism and journalism? How different does that feel to your sort of day job?
That's a great question. Obviously, what I'm trying to do, like document what we are in the process of losing, obviously does not have the power to prevent all this from happening. So what I'm trying to say is by documenting these, I'm saving some words so that I can compose some sentences in the future, because I get invited to at least two, usually actually three lately, talks in Turkey. Most of them are outside Istanbul, which is something that I really love, because Istanbul is too busy, too posh in many ways. And people outside Istanbul are usually more interested in what you're about to say. So I use these images in different combinations, by the way. So I showed a very little part of my documentary work, so that I don't bore you to death. But I show more of the documentary work in order to be able to say, hey, look, guys, I mean, this is what we had before. And now we're about to lose them. So, and when we lose them, what happens to our identity? What happens to our heritage? What happens to collaboration? How can we prevent this from happening and stuff like that? So, yes, they cannot stop that damage, but at least it can initiate discussion and talk and collaboration on what we can do in the future. So this is why I'm still taking these.
Do you not think that by documenting it or using your talent to document it that you can't create change?
Can you repeat the question?
So you say that you can't stop what's happening.
Okay.
Why do you think that you can't stop what's happening?
Actually, no. I mean, I just said the photos maybe can't stop this, but yes, I mean, I'm there, by the way, not only as a photographer, but also as a participant. I've been to all these demonstrations with my own will. I was so happy, and I didn't document some others because I thought they were, in my view, not paving the way to freedom in Turkey. I act as if they never happened. But here, participating in the first minutes, by the way, like in the first 15, 20 minutes, I'm so excited. I shake. So I wait till I get more, normal, so that I can start taking photos, because I get very excited to be there. I know I am part of a particular movement, which gives me a lot of hope. And these talks, believe me, especially the talks that I go to outside Istanbul, throughout the entire Turkey, I come back in such a hopeful mood. I mean, we're going to make it. Yes. and the photos somehow help this process. So I'm very hopeful towards the future. Thanks for asking the great question.
Ready for the present. Ahora el regalito. Momento regalito foto, un aplauso. Bien, ahora es el descanso. Muchísimas gracias a todos. En una hora tenéis los relojes en marcha, a las 12:30 aquí. Por favor, si queréis comprar libros de Phil, estará encantado ahí fuera. Y cualquier cosa, estamos aquí para contestar las preguntas. Gracias.